to the men and women who are standing for their marriage, trying their very best to not only make themselves a better person, but to make their lives better for their children, for themselves, for their spouse. And then we, as always, we pray and hope that one day God will return them back home to you and re-entering into the marriage in a way that will invite love and hope and restoration and the ability to rebuild with one another again. Again, if you don't know who I am, my name is Tyree Wilson. If this is your first time coming through, welcome. Hopefully that you will follow all my content wherever you find me, and I will see you again. If you guys ever have any questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to send me you can send likes, you can send a comment, you can email me, you can message me, DM me, it doesn't matter. Any way that you can, go ahead and message me. You can visit my website at www.tyrewilson.com. I'll leave the link in the description for any of you guys who want to check it out. And I will be uploading video and the podcast episode up to the website as well, so you can find it at your earliest convenience. So I've got a couple things I want to talk about today. Not too many things, maybe like one or two things we'll talk about today. But anyway, the point of today's episode is I want to talk about a video that I saw on YouTube not too long ago, like a day or two ago, that spoke about this couple, young married couple, happen to be like in their mid-20s or something like that. They do happen to have children. I'm not going to say their name on the channel or anything like that because I haven't spoken to them personally, and I don't want to put their name and that, that type of information out there for people to stalk them or whatever. But anyway, they had to deal with the husband being a sexual addict, and his sexual addiction manifested himself or itself in the form of him cheating on his wife. Now, for a lot of people, cheating is, that's the big no-no. That's the X on the situation. Marriage, engaged, together, it really doesn't matter. Any stage where somebody feel like they're being cheated on, that is very hard to come back from. And that is for both men and women. It is very hard to come back from someone who has cheated or being cheated on, even if you're the one who has done it or it has happened to. I'm not gonna get into like the statistics of how many people cheat. I basically believe it's 50-50 or whatever. It's equal for both men and women. It happens. It's a little bit more prevalent, I believe, in today's world because it's so easy to get access to other people through different ways, like social media, like finding people's phone numbers, like being at work, like it's not that hard to find people. Anyway, so while I was watching the video, I wanted to see what this woman had to say about living with her husband and his addiction. And what did they do? Now, eventually they put out a video that they were getting divorced. And that divorce video was made about a year ago. So I wanted to continue following their journey. I said, I understand, but obviously in the business that we're in and the mentoring that we do, we want to find out more about those people. Like, what caused the situation and what would help bring the relationship back to a place where both spouses feel like they can move forward, as individuals, but most importantly as a couple. How do you bring that back? And I felt like that was important to talk about because standing for your marriage, just because people tell you to stand, and that's okay. They want to see your relationship build and grow into something greater than what it used to be. That's very hard for some people who are just told to kind of like give up the way that they feel or to give up the way that they see things and to forgive. When someone has wronged them in such a way, it's a tall order, and to be understandable, if you are that person who has cheated, you have to understand that you put a lot of pain and hurt in somebody, regardless of whatever it is that they've done to you, however it is that they spoke to you, it doesn't matter. That's a lot of hurt into somebody. And if you're the person who's been cheated on, please understand that, one, people do make mistakes. No, you do not have to forgive them. Because if you do, understand that you don't forgive them for them, you're doing it for you. And if you find yourself forgiving them because of them, then chances are you haven't started any healing processes within yourself. So if you're going to forgive anybody, forgive them for yourself so that you can move forward. So anyway, more about the channel that I watched. I wanted to see, was there a point where if I was able to help this guy, if I was able to help the husband in any kind of way, if he was to join the mentorship program, or if he was to email me, or if he was to join a support group, what would he do? What could he do? And if I was to ask him, I believe that he would come out and say that it's his addiction that is the problem in the marriage. Obviously, the addiction is the problem in the marriage. And so maybe he would have worked on his marriage. Maybe he'd have worked on his personal issues. And maybe that would have let his wife know that he was working on himself to be re-entered back into the marriage. So then I pay attention to what the wife is saying, and I'm getting this vibe that no matter what he said or did, because of the level of cheating and his addiction to it that he was doing, she was done. She already made up her mind as far as what she was going to do. As far as the marriage is concerned, she said, we're getting a divorce. There was no coming back from it. But there was an interesting development within the couple. The interesting development was that they still have family days, and they still, for the most part, have a lot of plans that they do together. Even though the husband now lives in a different place and the mom has stayed in her home, she has the two boys, but they talk. They talk to each other. She speaks of her soon-to-be ex-husband lovingly. She disliked what he had going on as a personal issue, but she mentioned in the video she had a lot of love and compassion for him. And that was interesting to me because a lot of people have addictions, big, small, some are detrimental, some are some are puny, it's a little addiction, like video games and card collecting or something, if people even collect cards anymore. But it's a small addiction, but something as big as cheating on your wife, and then you have no reason as to why you do it, you just do it. That required a little bit more digging to find out what could he have done. And for you guys who are out there, men or women, who husband and wives, because I don't believe that everybody who listens to this podcast is innocent, first and foremost. If you're going through a situation similar to this couple, I want you to understand that it took both of them. It took both partners to figure out what they had to do in order to salvage whatever was left of their relationship, and quite possibly in the future find a way to reconnect, because the wife did not excuse the point that one day her and her husband, or her ex-husband, could be back together again. It's just right now the focus was on her healing, on him getting the help he needs, and for their family, for their children. For the wife, and for any spouse who has decided they wanted to leave the relationship based off of an addiction, whether it be sexual or non-sexual, she made an interesting point that I want to say for everyone here who is listening and watching. When you're thinking of somebody who is dealing with an addiction, in your own mind, people who are dealing with an addiction, let's say for simplicity, let's just say it's drugs. A lot of people who are addicted to drugs. People are addicted. If you drink coffee a lot, you're addicted to coffee. You smoke, you're addicted to nicotine, But then there's, those drugs that are like, they're narcotics or something, or they're opioids or something. Someone in their life is always compassionate and sharing compassion to that addiction. And that's what the wife said that she noticed about herself being in the profession that she's in, and the relationships with her friends and people outside of her marriage. She had a lot of compassion for people who go through very hard parts of their lives. She caught herself speaking softly when it comes to dealing with other people besides her husband who have addictions. No matter how bad it was, she said she caught herself feeling for other people. But when it came to her own husband, she spoke and felt hard feelings towards him. And that is completely understandable. But she noticed something about herself that I want to point out again. She said, if I could show other people this level of compassion, how is it that I can't show my husband that same level of compassion? Now, she wasn't talking about getting back with the guy and, and about their marriage and all of that. But she said, overall, how I treated him. Now, whether the husband or the ex-husband wanted his relationship back, I'm assuming he does, because he's very open to his wife and to his children. He wants to help which way he can, but he understands that he can't force his wife to be with him if she doesn't want to be. He made a point to not only admit and swallow up the addiction that he carries. He then acknowledged what the addiction has done to his wife, how it's not her fault, how no matter how he created that coping mechanism, how he became an addict to cheating and sexual encounters, he owned up to it. And he mentioned to his wife, and he stood on that platform saying, I'm going to get help. And he didn't just say it, he went ahead and he did it. And what he did is he agreed with his wife that he would move into an apartment for I think it wasn't a year. He said that they were going to do trial separation or whatever. If you ask me, I think he should have stayed in the house. But if that was to keep the peace, it's his marriage. He understands, what he needs to do. Obviously, at that point, you probably don't hold any cards to negotiate. So he probably did the right thing. But he told his wife, regardless of where he was or how he felt about the situation, he was going to get help. And he went and he got help. And with that, he stuck to his word. He stuck to his promise, and he started developing himself in a better way. Now, they are talking. Okay? They're talking because that is their marriage. That is ultimately what they do. But I kind of get where we might be going with this. Tyree, what's the point of the podcast? What is the point of today's episode? My point for today's episode is, 1, if you're going to make changes, make sure you allow yourself the ability and the room to talk about with your spouse what it is that you are willing to do to change you. Acknowledge what the problem, one of the many, if there are many problems of the marriage that there were. Please take time to acknowledge that. I've seen people argue for days. I've seen people argue for years and feel so hard towards other people for years simply because nobody would acknowledge their feelings. There's social media is just a powerful platform for so many people, but it allows and exposes you to so many people who have built up businesses, who have built up brands, who have built up a culture behind what it is that they're doing simply because of a situation or instance that happened to them that they never got full acknowledgement for. And with that situation and then that experience, those individuals have taken it so far and they've taken it so deep that some of them have lost themselves. I can't give you any examples, but you might know some. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, people who feel like they've been wronged in some kind of way with no acknowledgement to their feelings from the person who did wrong them, they go on and on and on and on and on. And it is, from my perspective, scary. And it manifested itself in this woman for years, she said. It manifested itself, not feeling like he was acknowledging her, and what led them to being divorced, because the husband would acknowledge what he did, but he had no plan to stop it. He had no plan to change his ways. Don't give up on the ability for people to change as long as they're willing to show it, as long as they're willing to do the work. For people who are out there, and for your spouse, if they have left you, for you who are standing for your marriage to make yourself a better person, don't give up on the work that you're doing for you to prove to your spouse that you are serious about them, you're serious about the relationship, and you can continue doing what you're doing. I have I have freaking bugs. Excuse me, I'm doing the podcast outside. I think it was a nice day, but apparently the bugs thought the same thing. But be wary of approaching someone's addiction. The best example I could possibly give, a simple one, is like, let's say like, not necessarily an addiction, but a need. A baby has to drink, right? Baby drinks milk. And if baby's drinking milk or eating food or something like that, and you go, mom or dad, you go and you take that bottle or you take that food from that child, you take that blanket, you take that binky, that pacifier, that chew toy, whatever they're playing with, take that from that infant or from that toddler and tell me what the reaction's gonna be. Any reaction, it's that baby's gonna blow up at you until they get what they want. And you know, because you're a good person or a good parent, you're gonna give them back what they need. However, with grown folks, it ain't so simple. You call somebody out on their addiction, what you see as an addiction to them might be their coping mechanism. What looks bad to you don't look bad to them. But prepare yourself, because if you're going to call that person out for whatever it is, maybe they talk a certain way, they act a certain way, they walk a certain way. I don't know what it is, but if it's bothering you and it is detrimental and it is something that they do in reaction to the world that they live in and the way that they see the world, if you're going to call that person out, be ready for backlash. Everybody's in backlash because we live in an age now where you can't tell nobody nothing. You can't tell nobody nothing. Be ready for backlash. For the men, be ready for her backlash, for that woman's backlash, because it's coming. It's coming. But you have to be man enough. This is why I say you need to stand your ground. I do not mean be a dictator. I do not mean try to be someone else's father. You know, she had a father. She don't need you to be a dad. But stand your ground and let it be known that this does not work for you, and can we please try to find some other type of solution for this problem and be serious about it, and don't take it any further. Just keep the subject focused and at hand. For the ladies, if you have a husband, his problem may be drinking. Maybe he stays out all night. Maybe he's quick to anger. Maybe he's he likes going out. Maybe he is a cheater. Whatever. People who cheat, men and women, of course. But let's say it is the man who's cheating. If you want to call him out, be ready. Because two things can happen. One, he's going to spaz. And he just will, because he wants his coping mechanism. And you have to be strong enough to stand your ground and let it be known that I'm not doing this for my comfort. I'm not doing this for my comfort. I'm doing this because it's important to our relationship. It's important for your health. It's important for our children. It is important for our future. You got to make it bigger than it's about me. I need to be comfortable. That's not going to work. They don't care about your comfort. They care about their comfort. And the next thing that could happen is lead with compassion. If you can feel for other people all day long, you feel for that person who's going through an addiction. You feel for that person who is physically abusive but loves his children and his wife, but he was beaten as a child, so he's trying to overcome. If you can feel compassion for those type of people, and thank God that you do. Thank God that you do. Concentrate on having that same type of compassion for your loved one. They need you just as much as those other people needed you. And nothing crisscrosses wires of communication in a marriage by not having the compassion for the other person. So that's the word I want to leave with you guys today. A little bit of advice. Work on that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to message the show any which way, and I'll talk to you guys another time.
Hi.